Welcome all to this webinar on importing data in Origin. This is an overview webinar where I plan to give you an overall picture of the importing capabilities in Origin. I would recommend that you do not try things in parallel in Origin while you're watching. So it would be more productive if you simply watch and ask questions. My colleagues from tech support are panelists, so they would be looking at your Q&A and chat as well. Please use the Q&A window in WebEx to ask specific technical questions. You can ask the chat window to put in general comments. Please do not chat privately with the host. That's me. I will not be able to view that while I am presenting the webinar. So please, if you're chatting, send it to all the panelists, everyone. By the way, my name is Ishwar Iyer. I'm happy that you are able to join us today for this webinar. Question we get asked very often, just want to say outright, we will be sharing this Origin project and the recording sometime next week. And if you're not familiar already, if you go to our website, OriginLab.com, let me show you right from the homepage, OriginLab.com. If you click on the support drop down, there is a link here for webinars. That will take you to the main webinar page. Here we have a list of upcoming webinars. So today at 2 p.m., my colleague James Chen will be presenting batch plotting. I recommend that you attend that. And then this is the schedule for next Friday, but there is more. If you click all, you will see that we have webinars scheduled all the way to end of September. We are doing 2 webinars every Friday. So please come back here and register for the topics that are of interest to you. Going back one level, back to the main webinars page, there is a button here for all recorded webinars. If you click on that, you will see recordings from all of our past webinars. And many of them, we have started putting them on YouTube. So let me just click on one to just show you. It takes you to YouTube and it starts playing right away. Let's just pause it. What I wanted to show was if you click on show more, you'll see that we have put markers for various subtopics in the webinar. So this is really nice. So if you come here and advanced curve fitting webinar, which was done last week, and all you want to know is how to rank models, you can just click on that to jump to that particular segment of the video. Okay, so that's a nice feature in YouTube that they added recently. You can also play it directly here or download the recording, and also the project files that are associated with the webinar are on the right side. Sometimes it's an OPJ file, sometimes it's a zip file. Okay. So any questions during the webinar, please feel free to type in the Q&A window. I'm monitoring that as well, and my colleague is looking at it as well. So let's look at the overall picture of importing. So first thing I want to talk about is some changes to importing. Okay. So I have here Origin 2019, so which is a few versions ago. I just launched that just to show you how things looked in the older version. Some of you may still have this older version. So in Origin 2019 and previous versions, all of the import was under the file menu. So if you go to file menu, you go to import, you will see import wizard, single ASCII, various third-party import routines and such. Okay, I just wanted to show where it is in older versions. Let me close that. I don't need that version anymore. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my 2020B, which is the current version. So after 2019, okay, version 2019, that's a typo. Version 2019B and later, okay, we released 2 versions a year, one in April, one in October. In 2019B and later, we moved import to a new data menu. So if you have a worksheet active, you will see there is a data menu now. Under the data menu, we have various options. I'll go through them all, okay, with various examples. The main change since 2019B is that we introduced a new concept of importing called data connectors. So you may find similar feature in Excel, Tableau, and other products. The idea there is that you can connect to a file and stay connected, and it can be a local file or a web file. I'll show you several examples of local files and getting data from the web as well. Okay, so right here in the menu, there is import from file, which is all the older import routines. They are still there. We have not removed them. Just that we may not go back and make any improvements to them. We will continue to improve our connect to file feature, and connect to file is essentially the data connector that I talked about. So here we have several options: connection to database, HDF, HTML table, JSON files, MATLAB, Origin project, Excel, NetCDF, text and CSV, and so forth. We keep adding more and more data connectors. So if you click on the add new, it'll open our app center. As you know, we have been providing free apps for Origin for the past many versions. So the app center opens in this case with showing only the connector, data connector types. And you will see there are several connectors that we have created for other formats, which we don't populate in the menu because you may not want it. For example, if you work with LaCroix, you can then download it. If you want Plexon connector, you can download it. So we have been adding new data connectors based on feedback from users like you. So this is where we need your feedback. Later in the webinar, towards the end, we'll have a poll, a very short poll with a few questions. We would really appreciate your feedback. We value your feedback, what improvements we should make in the upcoming version. We have Origin 2021 coming up end of October. And also we want to hear from you what new areas of Origin, features of Origin we should focus on in these webinars. Okay, so going back to the data menu, there is connect to file, there is connect to web. I'll come back to that later. There is also connect to database, okay, and connect to multiple files. Okay, so let me go through several examples of data connectors, as this is a fairly new feature. So first I'm going to do some simple text CSV file. So I'm going to do this by showing you the old way and the new way. I tend to speak fast. If I am going too fast, please mention in the chat window. Again, this is an overview webinar. I recommend that you watch and appreciate the features and then come back and look at the recording and the project later. But you're welcome to type your questions as we go along. So with this book active, okay, I think somebody is trying to talk to me privately to the host. Please don't chat privately to host. I don't have time to look at those chats. Put the chat to public or to all panelists, please. Okay, so let's go to the data menu and go to import file and choose the old CSV import. So I'm going to choose here, let me see, comma delimited CSV. Okay, and then I'm going to go here and pick one of our CSV files. Let me actually go to the desktop, go to the August 21st importing data. I have a few CSV files here. I'm going to pick one of them, add file, and click OK. And Origin import brings up this dialog. The old imports all had this elaborate dialog where you can set all the parameters for the delimiter and the header lines and such. So in this case, I can go here and I know in my case there are two subheader lines. First one should be long name, second one should be unit and such. So I can configure all that. I could even save this as a theme for future use and click OK, and the data comes in. Okay. Now let me show the same thing using the data connector. So now if I go to data, connect to file, and I choose text CSV, we have one data connector for both. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to choose that same file I chose before and click OK, click open. And this is a much simpler dialog. Okay, and we have made many improvements to the import itself, such as auto detecting main header lines and such. So you don't need to deal with what's long name, what's units, typical files that have like a common structure of. You can always override it, but there is auto. Okay, and let me just click OK and bring it in, and you'll see the difference. So to look at it side by side, it's the same data, okay, but there are some differences with how data connector works. When you have a data connector used to connect to a file, there is an icon on the top left of the book. Okay, if I click on that, you can see there are several options in the context menu. One is data source. If I click on that, it gives me the data source. It automatically chose relative path because my file happens to be in the same folder as my project. You can also choose absolute path. Okay, you can change the file there. You can go click select to bring up the dialog to make any changes, such as if your header line was not appropriate and such. I'll show you examples of that with Excel later. And there are some other options, such as, do you want to set auto import? Do you want to remove the data connector? And another important thing, do you want to exclude the imported data when saving? So this feature is pretty handy. If you bring in a large file, when you save the project, by default, Origin will remove all the import data. The benefit there is the project file will then be really small. Anytime you reopen, you can click on this icon and bring the data back. Okay, we have several tutorials on this, short videos on this, so I'm not going to go into too much detail of that. Just wanted to show you that this option exists, and you can override it by going to this context menu and deciding whether you want to clear the data or not. Another important feature is when the data is imported with the data connector and it stays connected, you cannot make edits to the data. Okay, the data is locked, so there is data integrity. Whereas in the old method, old way of import, you can just go ahead and intentionally or accidentally you can keep changing the data. Okay, so that's a key difference. Keep in mind though, only the columns related to the import are locked. So I can go here and I can add whatever other columns I want. So for example, SQRT of column B, for example, to do any calculation. So I can add more columns and do calculations and transforms of the data. Only the columns that are the source columns associated with the file are locked. Okay, in chat, I see several suggestions for new data connectors and such. We will follow up on that. Thank you. Okay, now let me move to an Excel sample to show the data connector with Excel. Okay, so with the book active, I'm again going to go to the data menu, connect to file, and then choose Excel. Okay, so this time around, I have a file here, US Energy. It's somewhat old data. It's one of our sample files. I just chose that. It's under samples, import and export, and click open. So the dialog opens and it's showing me, first of all, how many sheets there are. There is a sheet named oil, sheet named natural gas, and so on. Let me stick with the sheet named oil, and it's asking me the header line configuration. Let me just ignore that and click OK just to bring in the file. A few things to notice. The data didn't come in appropriately because there were some header lines, and Excel being Excel, you can put the column label anywhere and put comments on top, and it's just open-ended. So first, let me correct that. So I'll click here. I can click to bring back this dialog. Then I can say, yes, I do have column labels. Then I can say, okay, my long names happen to be in row number 3. My units are in row number 4. Okay, and I want to take comments from row 1 to row 2 and put it together in the comments box, comments row, and click OK. Now it corrected itself. Now I have nice long names and units and this comment here about source of the data. Then on the left, you'll notice there's a navigation panel. This panel shows up for any complex files. In the case of Excel, it's multiple sheets. I'll show you soon in the case of MATLAB, Origin, and HDF how it looks. So here the benefit is it's showing me I have 3 other sheets in that file. So I can go there, click on natural gas, right click and say add and connect sheet. So now I got another sheet, which is linked to the same file, connected to the same file, but it's now connecting to the second sheet and so forth. So this is really nifty when you're working with Excel file with multiple sheets that you can connect to the sheets that you want and not connect to all the sheets. Okay, I see some questions here. Does a connector save the data inside the project? I already explained that. You have the option to click here. By default, Origin looks for a certain threshold. If the data is large, it clears the data. If it's small enough, it keeps the data, but you can override it with this switch. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's move on to a MATLAB example. I'm just zipping through some of these examples to give you a flavor of data connectors, and then you can think about the file formats you work with, and maybe you have feedback to give us on other formats. I see some users already suggested. Okay, so now I go to data menu, connect to file, and choose MATLAB. And this time, let me pick a MATLAB file. This is a file that a customer gave to us and gave permission to share. I'm going to open it. And there are 3 variables in here, 3 double precision arrays, 200 by 4. Let me double click on one of them. So now you see, because MATLAB is a different structure, I have a data connector browser that opened. And this browser dialog opens for MATLAB, Origin, HDF, any files that have hierarchical structure. So with MATLAB, I can double click at the root level to bring everything in, or I can click at a single variable to bring in only that variable. Let me just bring in one variable. And then again, you will see that I have a sheet here and I have the hierarchy here. In my case, the hierarchy is rather simple. I just have 3 variables. So I can go and select the second one and right click. Now I have 2 options, add to the active sheet or add to connect to another sheet. So let me add to active sheet. So this way I can keep bringing more and more variables into the same sheet. Or if I want to, I can bring it to separate sheets. So that's the option with MATLAB. Okay. Let's look at a metrics example with MATLAB. So this time I'm going to go to my folder in File Explorer. And I have a file here, a MATLAB file with images. I'm just drag it and drop it onto a matrix, and it will automatically import using the new data connector methodology. And you'll see that it brought in everything, okay? And with matrices, you can view data in image mode, which is what this is. There are tutorials on this and videos, you can examine that. In recent version, we added also a slider, so I can move the slider around and look at all the images. It's a stack of images. I can go here and apply another color, such as say another palette such as topography, and then move through and see how my image is changing, data is changing from one image to next. Okay, we had a webinar on image, working with image data. You may want to look that up. You can go to the recorded webinars and play that back. Okay, keep the questions coming. I see my colleague Zheng Shao. Thank you, Zheng. Moving on, I wanted to show you a couple more data connectors before we move to other topics. So interestingly enough, we also have a way to connect to an Origin project. So let's say you have a project with lots of data that you collected from an instrument and such. You have it all in an Origin project. You want to just grab one sheet from that project to do some work in a new project. So you can do that by connecting to an Origin project file. Okay, so let me go to the data menu, and this time connect to file and choose Origin. Okay, Origin file. And in my folder here, we'll be sharing this with you under webinar, under today's webinar. I have a file called importing data. Okay, Let me just open that. Okay, sorry, that's the current project. I cannot connect to it, obviously, duh. So what I wanted to do was connect to another project, connect to origin file. I apologize. I actually want to go to origin installation itself and go to the samples folder. And in the samples folder, we have a large file called tutorial data, which is used for all the tutorials. Let me open that. Okay, now you will see this is now showing my origin project hierarchy. Tutorial data, it has all these subfolders with all information in here, such as a sheet and a metric sheet and such. I can pick and choose what I want here and then bring in only that particular data. So for example, I have some box plot data, a sheet here. It shows me what's the structure of the sheet. I can double click and select that sheet and click OK. And that only that particular sheet from that project comes in. Okay. So this way you can selectively pick and choose what data you want to bring in. And you will see in the hierarchy here, whatever I selected already brought in has been bolded. Now I can go to another book in that outside project and right click and say add as connected sheet to bring in another sheet. So you get the idea that you can keep all of the data that you collected perhaps as a repository in an origin project file and bring in just the data you currently want to work on. Maybe you have collected instrument data over many days and you want to bring in just the Tuesday data, for example. Okay. Similar thing with HDF. Let me just go to the menu here and connect to file and choose HDF. And my colleague Chris Drozdowski in tech support made a file. We have many files from users. Of course, we don't share any file without permission. So he just made a file from that same tutorial data that I showed you for origin. So here again, it's the structure in HDF. So mainly I wanted to show you that with such complex hierarchy, we have a browser dialog and you can drill down and you can choose whatever particular data elements that you want to bring in and click OK. And then later use the navigation dialog to bring in more such elements into the same book. Okay. I hope this quick run through of some data connectors was useful. We have many other tutorials and also in past webinars, we have gone through those. Later in this webinar, I'll come back to web data import. Okay. Any questions, please feel free to continue asking. I'm just taking a quick scan at the questions that have come up so far. Okay. Okay, somebody's asking, how do I connect to multiple files that have identical format so I can bring them into one sheet? Okay, let me quickly show that with CSV. So if I click and create a new book, under data menu, there is connect to multiple files. Okay, this doesn't support all of the data connectors. We only populated the most common ones. So let me choose CSV and let me go select 3 files I have here. Okay, add and click OK. And you can bring them all into the same book. The question from the user is, can I bring them all into the same sheet? The answer is no, because with the data connector methodology, one sheet connects to one book. We don't support connecting multiple files to this. Sorry, one sheet connects to one file. We don't support connecting multiple files into the same sheet. Okay, so I can click OK, and then all of my data will come in as separate sheets, and each sheet is now connected to a different file in the same book. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Another significant improvement we have done to importing of text files is that the speed is vastly improved. Okay. So in versions before 2020, for a file, let me show you the file. I have a file here. Let me open Windows Explorer. I have a file here with 5 million rows and 4 columns. It's 236 megabytes. And let me simply drag and drop that onto Origin, the latest Origin to import it. So I drop it, okay? And within 10 seconds, all of that data will come in, okay? So this is 5 million rows and 4 columns, okay? We made this improvement based on feedback from users, 5 columns. We still see many users who have large ASCII files rather than more compact binary files such as HDF for whatever reason. So in version 2021, we improved it by a factor of 10. If I take the same file and drop it on Origin versions below 2020, it will take about 100 seconds. So right now it takes only about 10 seconds. If you drop the same file or try to open the same file in Excel, the latest Office 365, I tried that yesterday. It took 120 seconds. And of course, it only brings in partial data because Excel doesn't support beyond about 1 million points. So this is a huge improvement in import speed with text files. So if you have large text files, please test them with version 2020 or 2020B and give us feedback on this. Okay. Another improvement is that if you have such files, plotting has also been greatly improved for this large data set. I can go to the plot menu, and under basic 2D, we introduced 2 new plots called density dots and color dots. Okay, let me show you color dots. I did not select any column, so Origin is asking me which column to use as my X and the Y. So let me choose this one as the Y, this one as the X, and choose this middle column to color and click OK. So this is 5 million data points plotted as scatter. And in previous versions of Origin, this would be terribly slow. With this new plot type, it's much, much faster. Just takes a few seconds to plot 5 million points using another column as a parameter to color as well. Okay, so try this out, try this new plot type with your large data sets. As I mentioned, it's under basic 2D and there are 2 versions, density dots and color dots. The basic scatter plot has also been improved, but these 2 templates are specifically configured for large data sets to explore large data sets very quickly. Okay. What about importing Sigmaplot data and graphs, a user is asking. We do have in the old import menu a routine for importing Sigmaplot. So if you go to import files, you'll see here Sigmaplot. And in the old menu, by the way, there is also add, remove file types. There are many other import routines that we don't populate in the menu by default, such as Heka, Tectonic, some broker options. Of course, we have some new DC for some of these. So you can always populate these. For example, if you want Heka, you take it, add it to the right side and place it wherever you want in the order. And then when you go back, you can go to the import menu and Heka will be there. By the way, Sigmaplot will import data. Obviously, we cannot import data from their graphs. We cannot import their graphs. That's their own proprietary binary format of the graph, and it's not possible for us to interpret what data is inside the graph. I will show you an example later, though, on digitizing an image. So if you have an image of a graph, you could bring in, you could get the data by point and click. If time permits, I'll show that later. Okay. I just wanted to show you one more feature about ASCII files, which is our import wizard tool. This tool has been around since version 7.5, and it's been a workhorse for many customers. So if you have a somewhat complex text file with multiple header lines that have parameters and such, then this tool may still be useful. It doesn't use the new data connector formalism. It's a different animal by itself. So let me just show you a quick demo of that. I'm going to go to the import file menu, and the import wizard can be found there, not under the data connector, but under the old menu. So let me fire that up. And I'm going to pick a file that I have here for the webinar. Let me go to my webinar folder, today's webinar. And I have 3 files here. Let me open one of them. Okay, sorry, this text file, and add and click OK. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this dialog. There are several options. There are tutorials on it, videos on it. I just wanted to show some key features. And it's a wizard. It's a walkthrough. So let me click next. And the first nice thing about this dialog is it gives you a preview of the ASCII file. So I can see here there are a bunch of header lines here which have some useful measurement parameters. They have a different format, a name and a colon separating the value. And down here is my header line, the column name, the second subheader line, the units, and then the data. Origin already did a good job of auto-detecting these 2 parameters. Okay, so it picked the number of subheader lines automatically and chose 1 and 2 for long name and units. Let me click next. And now what I want to do is I want to extract variables from those upper header lines and add them to my worksheet as parameter rows. Okay, so I check this box. Again, there are many tutorials and videos on this. You can go play those. I'm just showing you some key features of this tool. So here there are several header lines. Let me pick a few of them. Okay, so I'm interested in getting, say, the sample. So that is header line 3. So let me choose header line 3. And I can say here my separator is colon, because you see on the left of the colon is the name of the variable and on the right of the colon is a value. Then I can say extract both name and value from the file. And value is YBC or MILD, name is sample. That's for that line, right? Line 3. I click add. Then let me come to, say, line 2, the number of points in the file. Okay, number of points is 1,000. Name of the variable is number of points. I add that. Okay, let me just pick those 2. You can pick all of them, and you can also even parse the file name and extract segments of it, such as you wanted to get this middle number 125 for whatever reason. Okay? So it's a very sophisticated tool. So let me just click through the rest of the tabs here. It has controls for delimiters and fixed column width and such. There is partial import support and such. And the last page, whatever configuration I made, I can save it as a filter. And I can save it in the data folder or my user files folder, or I can save it in the window itself. Let me file folder. And I'm going to say use it only for the files that start with the letter S and end with the extension DAT. So I can give wildcard specifications. And I can say this is my custom ASCII filter. Okay. And click finish. And the data will come in. And you'll notice that the 2 variables that we created from the header, the sample name and the number of points, nicely show up in new header label rows here. So it's conveniently you can view the metadata along with the data. Of course, Origin also shows you the spark lines and the long name and the units. Now, if I go back to my folder and I simply drag another such file and drop it onto Origin, Origin knows that this starts with s*.dat, and I have already saved a filter. You see in this folder, I have saved a filter, my custom ASCII filter.oif. So Origin knows, oh, here is a file that matches a filter specification. Let me then use the filter to bring in the data. So this is a nice tool if you work with complex ASCII files and you want to configure them to bring it in along with enhanced metadata support. Okay. Moving on, drag and drop. I already showed you a quick drag and drop. I also showed you from previous examples of drag and drop. So by default, if you have files that have a data connector available, when you drag and drop onto Origin, Origin will import it using the data connector and not using the old import format. Of course, you can go to the menu and pick old versus new, but drag and drop is controlled essentially by a tool under preferences called Import Filter Manager. There is documentation on this. I'm not going to spend time on how this tool works. This is somewhat advanced if you really want to control the behavior of drag and drop for various extensions. You may want to look at the documentation for this. I just wanted to give a shout out to this tool. But in general, you can just simply drag and drop files. And for most formats, particularly CSV, TXT, Excel, MATLAB, HDF, and such, Origin will automatically use the new data connector way of connecting to the file and bringing in the data. Okay, let's see more questions. Okay. Okay, I see some suggestions here, and my colleague Zheng is following up. Okay. All right. Okay, moving on, let me show you some example now of web data import. That's also new. We introduced that at the same time. We introduced connecting to files using data connector. So first I'm going to show you a COVID data example. Okay, so here I have a URL. Let me just copy that. And let me open it in a browser. I can click and open, but that goes to IE. I just wanted to use, I didn't want to use IE. So I just wanted to stay with Firefox. So Control V, open it. So this is COVID tracking project where they have data for historic data, specific today's data and such. So I'm going to go to states, current and historical data and historic values for all states. If I click and expand here, you have the URLs. It's available in two formats, JSON format and CSV format. We support both. So let me go to CSV format, right click and copy this link address. Okay. So I got the link to the web file that I desire to import. So I come back to Origin now. Let me start with the sheet. I go to the data menu. I select connect to web. And a dialog comes up. This is a different dialog, which for connection to web, we support many different file types, HTML tables, JSON, MATLAB, even Origin OPJ file if you have it on a server, Excel files on the server, text CSV, of course. It's auto detect. I don't really need to change it. I just paste the URL here. Origin examines the file and decides which connector to use. So already there is a preview here showing my full path. There are some advanced options here. I'm not going to go into the details of that. My colleague Chris Drostowski did an excellent webinar on this. I have put a link here to our recorded webinars page. When you get this project, you can simply click here to open that page. Then you can look for connecting to web data webinar and just play that back. Okay. So I'm just going to click OK and bring in the data just to show you that you can bring data from the web. And here, of course, again, the CSV import options dialog comes up. I'm going to accept the defaults and bring it in. Origin data connector is smart in that if it's a date, it will automatically even recognize that from a CSV file and set it as date. So I can come here and change my display if I want to change from custom display to some other options and such. We had a date time data webinar just a few weeks back. You may want to go play that recording if you work routinely with daytime data. Okay. So now that I brought in this data, let me show you. I'll go to the view menu, and recent versions, we have this column list view. There are many, many columns in this worksheet. So Control W will toggle between the regular view and the list view. And the list view is convenient. It's a compact view. So I can go quickly look at all of my columns. Okay. So for example, I go here and I say, let me look at positive increases, the increase in positive cases. So I can select that and say, go to plot and say, give me a line plot of that. Okay. So I have a line plot now of positive increases. And let me go here, make this a little larger. In recent versions of Origin, you can simply drag and stretch a layer to make it wider, and then you can go click, use these nifty mini toolbars, and there are many useful quick operations such as fit page to layer. So I click that and it can automatically adjust my page to the layer to fit all the layers that may be outside of my view. So this is overall positive data. As you know very well, in March there was a peak, things died down, and our hasty reopening, which caused another big surge. So I can go here, I can then place filters, I can go to state, and just like Excel, I can place a filter icon, I can click on the filter. Origin recognizes that this is a categorical column and brings up all of the categories. I can uncheck and say, okay, let's look at Georgia, which has been in the news. Things are not looking that good there. And then if I go to my graph, it would have rescaled to Georgia, and then I can rescale and see how is the data looking. It seems to be coming down, the positive cases. Okay. Another example of web data I just wanted to show quickly is connecting to USGS data for earthquakes. So let me go to the help menu in Origin, and under the help menu, there is an entry for our Learning Center dialog. It can also be opened by F11. So let me just show you by clicking F11. So F11 opens Learning Center, and under Learning Center, there are several tabs. One for graph samples. You can come and look at various graph samples, all the new 2020B samples. You can click here and look at, say, for example, multi-panel plots. I'll remove this qualifier and then click search. You will see all the multi-panel options. You can click and open any one, and there are instructions on how that graph was created. It's a very useful tool to get a broad idea of the various plot types and open a sample project with a certain graph look that you want, and then you can take your data and try to make the same graph. And there is a Learning Sources tab, resources, where we have some beginners tutorials, beginner videos, and of course link to all of the videos, all of the tutorials, a user forum that's very active, Origin technical blog. Okay, we keep posting new feature blogs and blogs on complex technical features of Origin that may be very useful to you. Of course, link to our social media page and such. Going back to analysis samples, I'm going to go to the general category, okay, general analysis, and under here there is an earthquake JSON connector and HTML report sample. Let me just open that, and the sample will then, I think it will ask me, do I want to get the latest data? Okay, and it will go get the data from the USGS site. Okay, for the last 1 week of earthquake activity. So it's connecting, and it connected now and got the new data. So the nice thing about data connector is if the outside data changes, such as COVID data or earthquake data, the new data can be brought in, because when you open the project, it knows where to go to get the data. Same thing with ASCII files as well. You make a measurement, you add data to the same ASCII file. To continue appending your data, you can bring in the new data as well. Okay, so here is the earthquakes from the last week, and this is a nice HTML report. We have that capability now in Origin. If I press Control M, you will see this is all HTML. It has certain syntax to connect, to pick up a certain graph, pick up a certain table, etc. from the Origin project. There is a nice webinar on that. You can go play the recording. Okay. Just to show you that connection to web can be quite useful when you're looking at public domain data and bringing in data for analysis. So just to show you the data source, this is connecting to earthquake, and it's using a somewhat complex URL where it's setting the date and time to be 1 week. So the URL can be pretty, can be configured to put in parameters and pass as specified by that particular site. So USGS has a certain format for the URL, so you can get the data from a particular date range. Okay. All right. Database import. I'm not going to go into the details of this. There is capability for importing from database. I just wanted to point out My colleague James Chen did a nice webinar on accessing database recently. Again, that's all available as a recording. So if you are working with databases and want to bring in data directly from origin to database, check out that recording. Okay. All right. So now I want to show a couple of examples of somewhat unconventional import. Okay. So far we saw importing from files with specific format and also from the web with specific formats such as CSV, JSON, etc. But once in a while we'll have a user ask us, I have a image of a graph that a colleague sent me or I got from a paper. I quickly want to grab some data points from there, bring it in and play with it. How do I do that? So we have a Digitizer tool for that. So I was just going to show you that tool. Okay. So what I have done here is I have put a link to a journal, a PLOS journal, just to pick a random image from the web and try to digitize it. So this is an image with two scatter plots. So I'm going to just right click here and do copy image. So I'm just copying the image to the clipboard from this journal website. Okay. You can do the same thing with the saved file as well. Okay. So now let me come here and go to tool and choose Digitizer. Okay. So this is a built-in tool. And once the Digitizer opens, there are various options here. This is a rather complex tool. There are tutorials on this, videos on this. I'm going to show you some basic things. The second button here is to grab the image from the clipboard. So if I click that, if there is an image on the clipboard, it will go get it. So there is my image. Okay. So the first step I need to do here is to set my access parameters, because Origin needs to know what is the access range and so that the digitized values make sense. So I can simply click these lines. There are two lines for vertical and horizontal. I can place it anywhere I want at a specific location. So let me choose 10. Okay. And let me move this to 90, 10 and 90. Okay. I'm doing this quickly. You can zoom in and do it more precisely. I just wanted to show you the capability of this tool as a way of a different way of importing. Okay, I'm going to place this at 5 and 25. Okay, then I need to come to Origin and tell Origin that, okay, I placed the first marker for X at 10, the second marker for X at 90, and for Y I placed it at 5 and I placed it at 25. So this way Origin can calibrate the image and know what are the coordinates. Note that you can also do log scale. In my case, it's just linear. So now I will digitize the points. So I just simply click this button. There are multiple methods here for digitizing lines and auto tracing, partial auto tracing and such. You can play with those. You can watch the videos. I'm going to do a quick digitizing. I'm going to click this and go here. And you'll see there's a zoom window. I can walk around and let me just digitize some of the red points. I'm not going to pay too much attention to precise positioning. Just wanted to show you the capability. So I'm just clicking quickly to get a few points. Let me say that's enough. Then I can come and click done. Okay. Then if I go click on this button, it will show me the worksheet where the points have been picked. So this happens to be data from normal rats. So I can go here and add my comment, normal rats. Okay. Then I can go back to my window, and in the Digitizer, there is a button to say, let me see, where is it? I can continue to get other points. So what it was manually pick points and create one data set. I can reorder the points if I like. Okay. And then I can click on new line. Okay. So it creates a second entry here. Now I can go get the blue dots. So again, I'm going to manually just pick a few blue dots. So let me just double click on a few here. Okay. And let me go all the way to the end so that you can see the final graph. I'm just picking just a few. Okay. Okay. And then click done. And this were 52 TLE rats, whatever that means. So I can go here in my workbook, and under comments, I can put my 52 TLE rats. Then I have my data. So now I can take this data, which is the digitized data, and make a plot, like a group scatter plot. Okay. So here is my group scatter plot of my normal rats versus 52 TLE rats. Just wanted to give you a flavor that importing can be something different than you typically think of. And this is a tool we created because so many customers asked for it. Okay. Somebody again is trying to, oh, okay, let me see. There's a chat here. Are you intending to extend the digitizer towards image analyzer? I'm not sure what you mean by that. We do have a app for detecting and measuring objects in images, such as detecting, say, all the circular objects and getting the perimeter and the area and the long diameter and such. You should watch the recording of working with images in the recorded webinars page, and maybe that will answer your question. And if you work with images and you are interested in more types of image analysis, please email us, tech@originlab.com, and we'll be happy to work with you. One of the positive things in the upcoming version, 2021, is that we are making significant improvement to Python. We have embedded Python in Origin, and we are improving that greatly in 2021 so that we can tap into more Python packages for processing. And that's a good lead-in to my last topic here, where I want to quickly show you a couple of things coming up in 2021, which will be released end of October. Okay, so let me switch to version 2021, which I have already launched here. So one of the apps we are creating using Python is a PDF. It will extract tables from PDF files. Okay, something that customers have often asked for, and we happen to find out that Python has a suitable package for that, or packages for that. So here is a PDF file. Let me quickly open the PDF file and show you. It's some paper that some customer shared with us. And there is a table here and another table further down here. It only extracts tables, okay? So let me then go back to Origin, and then I'm going to click on this app button to launch the app. This app is not yet published. It will require 2021, the upcoming version. Okay, so I'm going to go to my August 21st import data folder and pick that PDF and click open. This app is in preliminary stages. If anybody is interested, we can give you a beta version of 2021 and you can play with it with your PDF files. So I'm saying bring in everything from page 1 to end, okay? And then click OK. Then it's going to run the Python code in the background and then create tables in the current book, okay, from that PDF file. Okay, it has to load the Python plugin and such. So here it is. Here's the first table. Obviously, the superscript, subscript, etc. will not come in as super subscript. So you will have to apply like rich text formatting later to what came in. But you can see that the two tables, I'm not sure what happened to the middle thing here. There's an empty sheet. Maybe the app thought there is a table there, but couldn't really figure it out. But anyways, if a colleague sends you a research paper as a PDF and you want to get the data out of the table to do a plot in Origin or something, you could use this app to bring in the data. Okay. All right, one last example. We are also working on extracting colors from images. That was often asked for. So let me just open that Python sample in Origin 2021. Under the samples folder, we are going to ship several projects that use Python packages. Okay, I'm going to just open one of them, extract image colors, and click open, and just say no. And in the project, so here we have buttons for doing various tasks to make this project work. One of them is to install required packages. So I have already installed, there is a package called Xcolors for Python. And then I can click on the show code button, which opens our code builder to show you the code that is used. It's very simple because it's Python. Everything is done by the package. So all I'm doing is a few lines of code here, or rather what my colleague did, a few lines of code to call the xcolors package with certain parameters passed. So let's see how that works. I go back and click on run code. Then I can pick an image. Let me pick this one with the green leaves and click open. Okay. And then it brings in colors. And this code has some parameters. I can decide how many colors to bring in. I think the default tries to combine similar colors into fewer colors. So I haven't played with the code yet. Those options exist in the package. But a nice thing here is that in Origin 2021, we also have a new column type called color. So if I right click and open the properties, I can see that this will be set as type color. So then I am using the function color ABC. This is my R, G, and B extracted. So it immediately makes the color and shows it to you in the cell. So that's a nifty feature coming up in 2021. So just as a shout out to 2021, Python has greatly improved. And if you are interested in playing with it, please just email us and we will set you up with the beta version, and then you will be able to give us feedback. With that, let me bring up the polling. Okay, please take a few minutes to answer questions. Your feedback is much appreciated. I think this was somewhat of a rushed overview of importing. So you may benefit from playing this recording back after we share the recording and the project with you. My objective was to give you an overview and give you some ideas to think outside the box, to ask us for more import types and ideas of bringing in data into Origin. As always, we value your feedback very much. Many of the new features in new versions are based on feedback from customers like you. So please keep talking to us. You're always welcome to email tech@originlab.com. If you have follow-up suggestions for improvements, apps, or any follow-up questions about this webinar, again, you can email tech@originlab.com. Just mention in the message that you attended which particular webinar, and then we will take it up from there. Thank you for attending today. I'll leave the Q&A and chat open so you can continue to comment and ask questions. There's a question here about, will the color analysis of images be capable of counting the number of pixels? I don't think so. It all depends on the Python package. That particular Python package I showed you just looks for colors and brings them in. If you have an image and a story on what you want to do with it, please email us. We can take it up from there and see what we can do. Again, that feature I showed you of extract from PDF and extract colors is only in 2021, which is not yet, it's in beta now. So you will not see it in your app collection or in your samples.